G'day guys, Rukshan here. Thanks for joining me for the news vlog. I hope you're having a lovely day. I've got a few stories from Australia and around the world to share with you. First up, it's this developing news out of Canberra, where we've had a motion passed to bring Julian Assange home. It is very much an aspirational type of motion, just to bring the parties together and awareness to the issues that Julian Assange is facing with the upcoming hearing in the UK. It has passed the House with the majority of the Greens, Independents, and Labour members voting for this, but the majority of the coalition has actually voted against it, with only one member of the coalition actually crossing the floor to vote with the Labour, Greens, and Independents on this matter, and some members of the Liberal Party coalition also not turning up to vote at all on this. And it's interesting because both parties, Liberal and Labour, have at different times, particularly different members of these parties, expressed their desire to bring this all to an end and have Julian Assange return to Australia in some form. What that actually looks like, we're not sure yet, so that would require some type of negotiation. But yeah, this is really an aspirational bill around that, or a motion around that. So I'll just read a little bit of this to give you some context. This is from Mr. Andrew Wilkie MP. Uh, on the 20th and 21st of Feb 2024, the High Court of Justice in the United Kingdom will hold a hearing into whether Walkley Award-winning journalist Mr. Julian Assange can appeal against his extradition to the United States of America. Mr. Assange remains incarcerated in Belmarsh in the UK, awaiting a decision on whether he can be extradited to the USA to face charges for material published in 2010, which reveals shocking evidence of misconduct by the USA, and both the Australian government and the opposition have publicly stated that this matter has gone on for too long and underlines the importance of the UK and USA bringing the matter to a close so that Mr. Assange can return home to his family in Australia. So if you don't know, Julian Assange is actually an Australian journalist. By now, many of you should already know the story of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. I'm not going to go into full details regarding that story, but this is the latest development in this. So in about, I think, a week and a half, Julian Assange will face this court in the UK, which is literally his last chance to stop this extradition from potentially playing out. Because if he ends up in the US, he is facing up to 175 years in jail. And it does seem like the deep state in the US really do want to get their hands on Assange and put him through this process as a deterrent, right? Because we know what WikiLeaks released over numerous amounts of document releases, but in critically this 2010 release that really showed what the US government and the military were up to with a lot of the wrongdoing that was exposed from those leaks. So they really do want to have Julian Assange face the music, most likely to deter future incidents of this type of thing occurring. Now, the issue here is, of course, he's Australian, he's a journalist. Many people, including myself, would argue that what he was doing is a form of journalism, and these are things which are traditionally protected. The newspapers did, in fact, publish a lot of that material. Like, those newspapers worked alongside him during those document releases and putting that information to the public. So journalists are technically protected under this, but they've found different ways to kind of get to Julian Assange. And we know the story of him hiding out in the embassy for his protection, and then they, obviously got him, and then they've been trying to extradite him ever since. Well, that's the fear anyway, and the courts have put him really through that system in such a horrific way that when you look at Julian Assange today compared to the man that we saw, around the time of this document release, you can see that impact that this has had on him. And many people would argue he's been punished. If you do want to punish individuals for leaking or being involved in the leaking of classified documents, I mean, Julian Assange has really been very publicly denied a normal life. So I support this type of motion to actually bring attention to Julian Assange and bring him back to Australia. Regardless of my views of national security and all these kind of things, I have views on that as well. But I think Julian Assange, in this instance, was involved in the act of a very important type of journalism, and that is holding great power to account. And we wouldn't know many of the things that we know today around the world, especially what these governments in the West were involved in, had it not been for people like Julian Assange and organizations like WikiLeaks. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think about this? What do you think about the fact that the Liberal Party have in majority voted against this? It's quite surprising, because this was more of an aspirational type of motion, I would say. It's not going to really bring him home, regardless if it passed. Like, nothing's happened because it passed. It just means that there's pressure and focus on the government, and they're united on this front. A lot of the people are saying the Liberal Party voted against this because of the criticisms in the bill of the US, particularly about which revealed shocking evidence of misconduct by the USA. And a lot of this goes back to the fact that Australia was involved in many of these escapades with the US military and the government. So there might be something to that as well. Again, let me know your thoughts around all of this. Now, back to a story I was covering yesterday, and that is, of course, the power outages that we're seeing across the state of Victoria. Till today, I think there's still 200,000 homes without access to power. Some homes have been told they will take maybe a week before power is restored. We have businesses who are unable to access, business facilities. Like today, we're talking about the florists because it's Valentine's Day. A lot of florists in those areas who don't have any kind of cash facilities are limited in the way that they can do interactions on their businesses because they can't sell products from their shop because the ATM machines and so forth aren't working. We have reports of cell towers going out of service, so Telstra cell towers mainly, and other network providers as well, because the backup generators that they have, apparently, that all these have battery-powered backup generators, haven't been able to recharge themselves, obviously, and they have to find diesel generators and so on to go out there to set up this infrastructure. So this is going to be an ongoing issue that's looked into. A lot of finger pointing. I'm going to probably let this one play out a little bit more before I bring you more news about this, but there's been a lot of finger pointing about who's responsible, whether it's coal-fired or renewables and all this kind of stuff. So I'll bring more of these kind of stories around this later on in the week if there's developments. Of course, how can I not talk about a news update without talking about Tay-Tay, or Taylor Swift? She is en route to Australia in her big carbon-emitting private jet. Let's just have a listen to this news story.
World's biggest music star is in the air and on her way to Melbourne. Rochelle Brown, Taylor Swift will touch down just after midnight.
Mitch, the countdown to touchdown is on. Taylor Swift is on board her private jet and just 6 hours away from landing. The megastar took off from LA after celebrating the Super Bowl. She had a quick pit stop in Hawaii to refuel and then continued her journey.
Look, it's great. Artists making, concerts. People love these artists. They go to the concerts. I'm sure you probably watching at home, you might have some teenage kids or daughters that are really excited. Maybe even yourself is really excited about this concert. That's great. I believe Albanese is also attending the concert, potentially in his private jet as well. I'm not sure exactly. But the reason I brought this up is because obviously she's been jet setting around from Tokyo to the US to watch the Super Bowl, and now flying into Australia. Over the last 3 weeks, she's done more travel and emitted more carbon than an average household. 16 times more carbon than an average household would in the entire year. So showing this disparity between, the celebrities and these types that preach about the rest of us cutting back our carbon footprints while they have the luxury of living this type of life. Now, let me know what you think about this. And I'm bringing this up because at the same time, one of the reasons that they say that Taylor Swift has to fly private is obviously the time constraints around her. She's very busy. She can't fly in a normal airliner because everyone would recognize there's security risks and so on. And it's interesting because I saw this video of Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, on a commercial flight, normal flight. I believe he's headed back home, but let's have a look at this footage of Javier Milei. I'm just going to let that play there, but they do say that this guy is hated by the people in Argentina. A lot of the people are saying, oh, well, how did he get in there? He's this right-wing populist and all this kind of stuff. We know that he's got very libertarian values and he has all these kind of libertarian-style policies. Regardless of all of that, you see him amongst the people here in a commercial plane, walking through, fist-pumping, taking selfies, right? What's the security risk, Taylor Swift, right? This is the president of Argentina who's able to fly commercial and get around. And he's done this consistently since he's won the election, chosen to fly with the people on commercial planes. Should more of our politicians be like this? Could Albo could Albo fly around the country in this manner and be snapped up in photos and loved by the people with this way, right? Could he do it? Or will he have to take the private plane to see Taylor Swift? I think he'll take the private plane. Let's see. Next story I have, guys, is around regulations that they want to introduce into your vehicles. That's right. There is a push to put cameras to monitor people in vehicles, starting, of course, with heavy vehicles like trucks, people who do a lot of long-haul driving. But eventually, according to this report at least, they want this to be car-wide. Every vehicle has to have these type of devices fitted in where there's a camera monitoring whether you are distracted or not. Now, I'll get to what I think about this, but let's have a listen in on this story first.
Regulators want driver distraction cameras installed in every truck and car on Australian roads. It's claimed the technology has helped avoid nearly 500,000 crashes over the past year. As Heidi Murphy explains, the tech keeps an eye on your eyes.
David Ide is in his truck up to 80 hours a week, watched at every moment by a special camera.
It's always working, all times. When you're working, it's working.
And waiting to act at the first sign of trouble.
There we go. That's all it does.
That alert triggered by the tiny infrared sensor that's tracking the face, the eyes and the body.
It detects whether or not the driver is...
Now, I'll pause it there. Look, it seems like a great safety feature to have these kind of fatigue warnings in a vehicle. Obviously, if it's regulated, that means it's going to be industry-wide. They're going to have regulations where any new vehicle that comes into the country will need to have certain type of technology fitted into it. And it has safety benefits. You can see some of those benefits playing out here. The problem with these type of regulations is, particularly when you talk about monitoring devices and cameras, which potentially can then be expanded upon, right? You go from monitoring people in the car who are driving for fatigue to just monitoring people. You know, where do we blur? Where do those lines blur? Is the issue, I believe, and the future that we're headed into, where all this convergence is happening between this type of technology, and particularly with the infrastructure around how data can travel through these systems. Can we envisage a future where the government is technically watching you in your car while you're driving, giving you fines after the fact? Kind of like a Minority Report type thing. I believe there was some sort of technology like that in there as well. But can we imagine such a future becoming a possibility? I can see the reality of that. So if this is actually regulated, it would be very interesting to read the letter of the law, the way that they put this into the legislation. Because if there's any kind of gray areas where, you know, the cameras are defined in this particular very specific manner and the use around that data isn't defined in a very specific manner, it could spell all types of privacy concerns for us in the future when they force these kind of cameras to be linked into a centralized system alongside your digital ID so they can see you if you are driving outside of your 15-minute city. Can you see that happening? I can see it happening. Next story, guys, is this some US news. I love covering US news. This is an interesting story that I saw about in America, because there's that, you know, obviously the immigration crisis that they're having at the southern border, where lots of illegal immigrants are coming into the country, and there's overflow. Of course, when you have hundreds of thousands of people rushing across your border, and you already have issues around, you know, housing, and, you know, they're putting up people in hotels, for Christ's sakes, right, in the US, in New York City. There's these type of issues. And even for the illegal immigrants, they're having issues with housing. And some, you know, well-meaning, progressive, liberal-style women or people, I'm not going to specifically say women in this instance of this video, it's a woman, have taken them in. Let's have a listen in how that's going.
She felt bad, as any mother would. Now things are looking much brighter as they've been welcomed into Lisa Hillenbrand's Brookline apartment.
Tu niña es muy alegre ahora.
Sí, muy alegre. Cuando se levanta en la mañana, se dice, "Ay, Lisa."
Oh. She says her daughter is very happy. When she wakes up in the morning, she says, "Hi, Lisa," and everyone starts the day smiling.
It's a delight, and it's really fun having them. What I realized is there's so much prejudice against refugees, mostly because people don't know them.
Lisa says she feels like she has her own personal chef, as Wildande loves cooking.
¿Te gusta la ocupación?
Sí.
In fact, her goal is to open up her own restaurant restaurant.
I'll pause it there. I don't know if you heard that. The lady that's keeping her at the house, well, letting her live there, says that she feels like she has her own personal chef because she's got the Haitian woman cooking meals for her. Now, what does that remind you of? What does that sound like? I know this could be very innocent, and a lot of the times the complaint has been against progressives who are, fighting for refugee rights or fighting for illegal immigrants' rights and so forth, is to open up your house to them. Let them come stay with you, right? Don't put them elsewhere. You open up your house to them, put your money where your mouth is. And this lady is doing it. And one of the benefits of doing it, it seems, based on this story, is a progressive nirvana where the people who are illegally in the country, right, Joe Biden voters in the future most likely, are now making you your food and helping you run the household. What does that sound like? I'm not going to mention it, but you put two and two together and tell me what you think that sounds like. That's a bit of a topic of discussion. Now, this one is from the Babylon Bee. This is, of course, satire, but it's very realistic for the US. And this is the Chair Force One. It is the, what do you call the granny scooters that you have that people travel around in. And look, no disrespect to anyone that uses one. There comes a time, perhaps it'll come for me as well, where mobility and all these type of things become an issue. And we have Biden, the president of the US, numerous times on video now falling in quite, it's very sad to see that in many ways, regardless of my thoughts on him. And now we have the Babylon Bee proposing the Chair Force One for Joe Biden to get around the place and be safe. And I'm bringing this up because, there's been a lot of talk about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. And he's on a bit of a pushback against this, and there's a whole team around him, and a lot of that pushback is around appealing to younger voters. So Joe Biden has actually opened up a TikTok account. That's right, Joe Biden is now on TikTok, which is even crazier considering the fact that most of the US government considers TikTok to be a national security threat. But here we have the president opening up a TikTok account for political purposes. And can you imagine that what he is doing in this video is very cringy, I believe, but apparently this is how he's going to try to appeal to younger voters by having, dinner with them and so on, to make himself seem like more approachable to this generation. And it's just cringe watching this, because this sounds like just a stuttering grandfather having all types of issues at the dinner table. Let's have a listen in.
Oh man, you got chicken fingers. You got the whole deal. I want the root of making sure I had.
This is so not sincere. This seems so
tell
fake.
me about you guys. What you doing these days?
How about in school? How y'all doing in school? You should tell the president about the school.
Favorite thing about it is the business academy I'm in. We get to travel, so we've been to NC State, Wake Tech, and
You're kidding me.
we went to this small dry cleaning business, and it's cool. It's a great experience.
I'm impressed.
Again, trying not to cause offense to anyone, but it looks like he has, just the kids are visiting him in a nursing home, and they're just updating grandpa who's got a bit of dementia with whatever's happening in their lives, and his acting is just so bad. But with all of this, they're saying at the White House, regardless of the fact that his own DOJ has said that he is an elderly man with a poor memory, when it comes to the the test that they do every year, the physical or whatever, they won't be doing a cognitive test for Joe Biden. Let's have a listen in.
What do you think about the idea of taking that kind of a test? I mean, look, and I talked about this last week too on I believe on Friday. I have known this president since 2009. He is not just my boss, he's also a mentor to me, and I've spent sometimes countless hours with him, whether it's in the Oval Office, whether it's on the road. And I believe, for me, you're asking me my personal opinion, he is sharp. He is on top of things. When we have meetings with him, with his staff, he's constantly pushing us, trying to get more information.
Pretty much, they won't do a cognitive test, most likely, on Biden. He's not going to do that part of the test. And here they are now framing Biden as being a very sharp individual. Apparently the sharpest individual in the room, if you believe them. I'm not kidding you. Listen to this.
President Biden, who I've been around numerous times just in this last year, is sharp, he's focused, he's bright.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused. This is a man who is sharp, who is on top of his game, who knows what's going on. He's smart. He's on his game.
I was in almost every meeting with the president, and the president was in front of and on top of it all, coordinating.
They are so full of crap. I mean, if anyone, any ordinary person has seen just a minute video of Joe Biden trying to say something during a speech at a lectern, you will know that he is not all there. These guys are just spreading complete BS. And to that end, Donald Trump has also chimed in with this great zinger. This is what Donald Trump said. The thing I like best about the DOJ report on Biden is that in 25 years, when I've lost my marbles, I can use mental incompetence and bad memory as an excuse to get out of trouble. And I can see Trump saying that, actually. I can definitely see Trump saying that in the future when he gets into trouble for some whatever reason that they want to charge him for, you know, some Russia hoax, whatever they want to do again. He'll just say, oh, look, I'm old now. I can't remember a thing. There's nothing you can do about it. Anyway, guys, that was it for my news vlog today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you're enjoying what I'm doing, you can follow me on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. You can also hit that notification bell and you will get updates instantly, apparently, on YouTube when I post. You can also find me on X, Rumble, Facebook, Instagram, and Odyssey at The Real Rukshan, or at my website, www.realrukshan.com. If there's any stories you want me to cover, please put them in the comments. I will try to get to them as well. But otherwise, see you guys all tomorrow.